Hi, this is Simon Upstall and welcome to part 2 of this very gentle introduction to Blender, in which we're looking at building this scene. So this is where we left it last time, and what I want to do now is I want to add the central core rotor assembly. I'm going to come over to Add and Mesh, and I'm going to choose Cylinder. So this is too big, but fortunately we've got our little pop-up menu down here where we can reset the radius, and I'm going to go for 0.1. Then I'm going to hide my sphere, which I can do by clicking on that eye symbol there in the outliner. So then I want to come to the object properties for the cylinder, which is obviously still selected. I'm going to set the Z scale here to 0.5 and then the Z location to 0.5. So we've now got half the cylinder and it's sitting on the floor level, as it were. And what we need to do is to apply these two transforms that we've created there. So over the viewport, we'll use Control A and then select all transforms. And you notice that those have disappeared here, which is what happens when we apply the transforms. So then let's come into edit mode. I use the tab key there, but you can do it from the menu here. And I'm going to select loop cut or Control R. And I'm going to click and just click away. And then I'm going to set the number of cuts down here in our little menu to 6. So then I'm going to come into faces mode. Let's select solid display in this view here. It's going to make the modeling a little bit easier. So I'm going to select the select box tool here, and then I'm going to alt click on this row of faces here. So if you remember, alt or option click selects a row of faces. And then I'm going to use alt S just to scale it out. So I'm dragging to the right there. Alt S was the shortcut. And for the offset here, I'm going to go for 0.15. And then I'm going to come into edges mode. And I'm going to select this row of edges by alt or option clicking it. And then I'm going to enable the move tool by hitting the G key and then Z for the axis that I want to move it on. And I'm just going to move it up like this till we've got a little bit of a flare there and it's not completely flattened off. And then I'm going to come back into faces mode and I'm going to select this row of faces here by alt or option clicking on it. I can use the simple S on this, so S and just drag outwards like that, and 1.5 roughly like that is going to be good. So we need to do the same thing with moving those edges, so back into edges mode. Let's set our viewpoint to front so we can do this a little bit more specifically. We don't really want to see our camera, it's getting in the way of our work here. So again, we can click on its eye here, and that just hides the camera. So as I say, we're in edges mode. We're going to alt click on this row of edges, G again for the move tool, Z for the axis, and just move it down like that. And then we're going to alt or option click on this row of edges, G for the move tool, Z for the axis, and then just drag it up like that. Then I'm going to come back into the loop cut tool, and I'm going to make a loop cut sort of roughly there, and then another one roughly there. So then let's just zoom into this bit a little bit more. So I'm scrolling with the mouse to zoom. Let's come out of loop cut and use the select box tool here. And let's select this row of faces. Alt or option click on that row of faces. S for the scale tool and just flare it out just a little bit like this. So two more bits of modeling I want to do. Let's use the loop cut tool again. And if we kind of zoom in here, and we want to put in a little bit of a loop cut just here like that. And then let's come into faces mode, number 3. Let's come out of loop cut mode by selecting the select box. Let's select this row of faces and then E for the extrude tool, or you could use it from the menu here. E for the extrude tool, just drag that up a little bit just to give us a little bit of a profile there. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this row of faces here by Alt or Option clicking on it like that. And what I want to do is I want to deselect every other face, and there's a very easy way of doing this. So come to the Select menu and Checker Deselect. So this is quite nice. And now what I can do is I can extrude these faces inwards. So I'm going to select the Extrude tool, and we'll just drag that backwards a little bit like that till we get that little bit of a indentation like that. So then what I want to do is I want to delete the bottom face. So I'm going to roll over, use the Select tool here, select this face, and then X to delete. But I also want to delete all these little ones here. So how can I select them all without having to go around and actually pick up each one? Well, I can come to the Select tool and select Similar and Coplanar. And that means every face that's on the same plane. So there you go. That's actually now selected all of those all around, and I can hit X and I can delete those faces. So now we've got a tidy bottom half that we'll be able to mirror. So obviously this needs some smoothing. So let's just come out of object mode and let's come into modifiers, add modifier, and search for subdivision surface. Add that. Let's set the viewport levels up to 2. So now we've got a bit of a sort of vase shape, and we don't really want that. We want things to be a lot sharper. So to do that, we can come back into edit mode. And this technique is going to be familiar to you from the previous part. So we're going to come back into the loop cut tool, and let's just select a loop there and just drag that up till we've sharpened that one off. So still with loop cuts tool selected, let's come here and drag that one down. Let's sharpen that up. Let's select this loop here, drag upwards to sharpen that. Here, drag downwards to sharpen it. Here, drag upwards. Here we can drag downwards. Here we can drag upwards. And we're pretty good. Maybe put one in there as well, just for fun. And then I also want to come back into Faces mode and the Selection tool and just select this face here. And then I want to come to the Inset Faces tool, or that's I on the keyboard, and just very slightly inset that face there. Just going to tidy things up a little bit. Let's come out of edit mode, back into object mode. Let's select Shade Auto Smooth, and you can see how nice and smooth everything is now. So we want to mirror this downwards now. So we can come to the modifiers, add modifier, and we can search for mirror. Select that. Now we don't want the X-axis here, we want the Z-axis. So disable X and enable Z, and you can see we've got a very, very nice mirrored result. We do need to give it some material, so let's come over to this viewport shading here, the second one along that allows us to see the materials. Click down here on the materials, and then from this menu here, let's select the panels material like that, and that applies that to our central rotor. So let's tidy things up a little bit here. Let's call this rotor. And now what I want to do is create the outer rotating segments. So I'm actually going to come to the top view for this, and I'm going to come to Add, Mesh, and Cylinder again. And this time I want a radius of 0.75. You'll notice that our little menu here has kept the last radius that we input, so that's something to bear in mind when you're using it. So 0.75 for the radius. I also want to reduce the depth. Let's go for 0.1. And then let's hide the rotor itself. And let's come back into the solid shading mode while we work on this. So I'm going to select the top face, and I'm going to roll over and select the bottom face. So both of those are selected. I've got the Inset tool selected like this. I'm going to very slightly inset those faces. Something like 0.15 is going to be good. So while those two are still selected, or reselect them if they're not, let's right click on the viewport and select Bridge Faces. And you'll see what that's done is it's created a bridge between those two and created a hole in the middle. So then what I'm going to do, still in the top view, I'm going to select this row of faces by alt-clicking it. Alt-click that one, alt-click that one, alt-click that one, and that one as well. So we've got those loops selected there. And as before, we're going to select the inverse. So select invert and then delete these faces. So X to delete and faces. Let's come into edges mode and let's zoom in a little bit. And I want to select this end row of edges. So alt click that row and I can hit the F key to fill them. Let's have a look at the other side. Again, let's alt-click to select the loop and then F to fill them in. So then let's come out of Insert Faces mode and select the Loop Cut tool again. And what I want to do is click here on the top and then let's add some more cuts. So I think I want to go with 4 like that. So then let's come to Faces mode and let's use the Selection tool. So I'm going to select this face and Control select that one. I'm going to hold down the Shift key and select that one and then Control select that one. I'm going to roll over so we can see the underside. Holding down the Shift key, I'm going to select this, Control select that, Shift key to select this and Control to select that. So the Control selects the faces in between like that. And then because we're still in this mode here, individual origins, we can select the extrude region tool and just very slightly extrude those up. And you see it's actually extruded in both directions. So I'm going to go for 0.015 for that extrusion. And then I'm going to come out of edit mode. So there is our segment. Let's come over to the wrench icon, modifiers, and let's add our old friend subdivision surface. And let's have 2 for the viewport levels again. So we need to do more loop cutting. So as you know, we need to be in edit mode for that. So tab into edit mode. And we need to use the loop cut tool. So let's loop cut this end here. So that's selecting that loop and dragging it out. Select here, drag that out to the end. Let's select the middle here, drag it up to the top. Select the middle again, drag it down to the bottom. And let's come out of edit mode. And now we've got this really pretty cool looking profile like that. Very easily done, nice and smooth. We'll make it smoother by using Shade Auto Smooth. And let's also come down here. Let's switch into this viewport, shading, and select panels again for the material. So obviously again we need to make an array of this, so they're running around in a circle. So let's come to the wrench tool again. Let's add modifier and let's search for array like that. Again, we want to turn off relative offset and we want to turn on object offset. Now, because we've already applied this empty to create the sphere, we can actually now reuse it for the purposes of this. So I can, from this menu, select that empty like that. So what we're going to have this time is a count of 7. And I just need to remind myself what 360 divided by 7 is. So it's kind of 51.43, let's call it. So we would come over to the empty, and instead of 45 degrees there, 51.43 is going to give us an array of 7, near enough. So let's come back to that cylinder and let's drag the array above the subdivision like that, and then selecting it, let's hit Control A to apply it. So then I'm going to turn back on my sphere like that, just so we can see where this is in relation to it. So let's come to the front view point like that and come to Object Properties, and on Z, let's just move it up till it's sort of there. Where we want to go for? So 0.35 I think is probably quite good. And let's now duplicate this element. So I'm going to actually turn off the sphere while we do it. So with it selected in the viewport, we're going to hit Shift D and then Enter. So now we've got a duplicate you can see here in the outliner. And I'm going to set its position to negative 0.35, so it's down there. Then I'm going to select the original one, and let's duplicate that again. So Shift D and Enter. So now we've got a third one. And I'm just going to set its scale down to 75%. So I can do that by hitting the S key and then typing 0.75. And that's reduced the scale. So let's just move it up to 0.6 on Z, I think, in this case. And then let's duplicate it. Again, over the viewport, Shift D to duplicate and Enter. And let's this time set the Z position to negative 0.6. So we need to do a bit of tidy up, and I'm just going to rename these cylinders, and I'll come back when I've done it. So I've called them top small, top large, and bottom small. So it's all getting a little bit cluttered here in the outliner. I'm just going to make a little bit of space here, drag that down, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to make a new collection. And then I'm going to take these, Control select them all and drop them into that collection. So now we can actually just have them all in the one place, and that's all a little bit tidier. So what I want to do is a bit of parenting here. So we need to select the one we want to parent and then the one we want to parent it to. So I'm going to do first do with the large ones. So I'm going to select this bottom one here and then Shift select the top one. And then I'm going to use Control P and I'm going to select Object. So now if I rotate this top one, you'll see the bottom one also rotates. And this is going to make life so much easier when we come to animate this. So let's do that with the other two. So select the one you want to parent and then Shift select the one you want to parent it to, Control P, and then select Object. And then select the top one and you'll see that we can rotate that and they both rotate together. So then let's turn back on our rotor and our sphere. I'll just do a quick render to show you the problem we've got. We've now hidden the light inside the main rotor assembly. So if we come to the light and we set its X location to something like negative 0.35 and we render again, that's looking a little bit better. So what I also want to do is actually duplicate this light. So over the viewport, I'm going to hit Shift D and Enter. You'll see that's made a new light. I'm going to set the position of this second one to positive 0.35, and I'm going to come down to the light bulb here and I'm just going to change the color, so we're going in the opposite direction with the color for this one. Incidentally, if we want to see what it's all looking like without actually having to render, we can click on this third and final button which shows you the lit view of the scene. If we click on that, you'll notice it's all a bit shonky, and that's because the viewport is not denoised. So if we click on the denoise here, so come to this menu here, click on viewport denoise, we get a better looking result. We can turn those samples up as well if we want a better result in the viewport, but we'll get a nicer result when we actually hit render. So this is where we are now, and I think that's probably enough for this part, and we can come back in part 3 and look at the whole question of animation, and I hope you can join me for that. So thanks very much for watching. See you again soon.